What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at the second installment into Legendary's MonsterVerse with the prequel, Kong Skull Island. Let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. Overall, I like this movie. I've been a fan of Kong Skull Island since I first saw this movie. This is my third favorite King Kong movie, aside from the original 1932 movie and the Peter Jackson remake. Yeah. King Kong has been around for almost 100 years, and the only three movies that I like within that 100-year history is the original, the Jackson remake, and this. Goes to show you I'm not the world's biggest King Kong fan. I don't hate the character, it just never resonated with me. I was always more of a Godzilla kid growing up. Now, does that mean I hate King Kong as a character? No, I don't. There's a lot of potential for that. There's a lot of potential for King Kong to be cool. And maybe the movies that I didn't see that featured him were really good. I don't know, because I'm not going to go my way to watch them, because I just don't have no interest in them. Now, as opposed to this movie I like. This movie pretty much features King Kong the way I feel King Kong should be portrayed, which is this hulking gorilla that is constantly battling monsters and battling just every single type of enemy you can think of. That's not to say the movies that I've seen didn't have that, because it did, but a little bit of it. But those movies were more focused on the Beauty and the Beast angle of King Kong, and not really his more action on the King of Skull Island angle, which is what I think Skull Island did, and I thought did it really, really well. I thought the director, Jordan Vogt-Roberts, did a really good job with this movie. You can see a lot of that 1970s influence with Kong Skull Island, particularly that of Apocalypse Now, with the cinematography and a lot of the shots and a lot of the characters that pay allusion to that movie. I thought Roberts did a really good job behind the director's chair. I think Larry Fong's cinematography. This is a beautiful looking movie. Now, when you compare this movie to the 2014 Godzilla movie, this is what Godzilla should have looked like from a cinematography standpoint. Not this overly just washed out, colorless movie where you can barely see anything. King Kong is bright. It's colorful. You can see everything. Now, I get the angle that Gareth Edwards was going with Godzilla. I just think he overindulged in it. Roberts, on the other hand, he found that nice balance. He found that nice balance with the cinematography and the way the movie should have as an overall look and feel to it. The action sequences in this movie, I think, are really well done. King Kong looks like a beast. No pun intended. Now, this is a younger version of the character, but damn, does he wreck shit up. Especially when the characters first land on Skull Island, he's destroying the entire military. Of course, it's revealed later on that he was not attacking these people out of randomness. He was attacking these people because it was in fear that they were going to wake up a threat that is much, much greater to him and to Skull Island, which are these monsters known as the Skull Crawlers, which are these ginormous fucking lizard type things that are just monstrous looking and more beastly looking than King Kong is. So I like all that stuff. I thought that stuff was actually really, really good. Now, in terms of the human characters, listen, the MonsterVerse movies, starting from Godzilla and on, they were never known for having these deep, well-written characters. And Kong Skull Island, it's no exception. However, there are two characters that really stood out to me. That is the character of Samuel L. Jackson's character of Packard, who is this Vietnam War colonel. His character is very reminiscent of Marlon Brando's character from Apocalypse Now, and I like it. I thought Samuel L. Jackson did a really good job with this movie. There are a lot of scenes where he just has the most intense look on his face, and you can see the obsession and the hatred that he has in his eyes for King Kong, and you can tell that his character feels every single death that happens to his unit, and that he takes it very, very personally, which makes his feud with King Kong to me feel much more personal. And you couple that with the PTSD he's suffering from the Vietnam War, and how he hates journalism and how they ruined the war for him and his unit in America. And yeah, he's not an overly deep or complex character, but he's got some good bits and moments to him. And I think Samuel L. Jackson, to me, is just overall, it's Samuel L. Jackson. He's good in everything he does. I like him in this movie. I like the interactions he has with a lot of the characters, and I particularly like the interactions he has with his own unit, who pretty much view him as like a father figure in a way. So I like all that stuff. It wasn't like overly done. I mean, if you would have did it more, it would have made the characters a little more interesting. But for what I got and for what the movie offered me, I have very little complaints about it. And another character that I enjoyed is John C. Reilly's character of Marlowe, who is this World War II veteran that gets stranded on Kong Skull Island with a Japanese soldier known as Gunpei. At first, they were enemies, and then they became friends. I like John C. Reilly in this movie. John C. Reilly is the second best character in this movie as Marlowe. I like his story of him being stranded on Skull Island since 1944. I like the whole thing of him having a more of a base knowledge of Skull Island and where to go and where not to go. I like that he has a mutual respect for the character of Kong, and how he helps, and how in the end he helps Conrad and Reva, played by Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson, to help Kong after Packard plans pretty much a death trap for him. I also like Marlowe's, story, little mini arc of him trying to just get off the island and go back to Chicago and have a beer and a hot dog, reunite with his family. Him not knowing how his family's going to react to him and stuff like that, which is paid off nicely in the mid-credit scene. And not only that, I just thought John C. Reilly was actually just legitimately funny in this movie. He wasn't overly comedic, but he had some nice comedic bits. And he also pulled out some pretty good, decent dramatic scenes as well, especially when he's telling the story about him and Gunpei and how they were once enemies and became friends. I like the little tribute he does to Gunpei before he leaves the island. It's a nice tribute to his fallen comrade. He said it best. They fought as enemies, but then they became friends. And I am actually in agreement with Jordan Vogt Roberts. I would like to see a mini movie with Gunpei and Marlowe in their first initial years on Skull Island, what they had and how their friendship blossomed from being enemies until now, or present day now of 1973. I think that can make for a cool movie. So yeah, Marlowe and Packard, two of the best characters in this entire movie, played by pretty much two really damn good actors. Now, how was the supporting cast in this movie around him? I like the supporting cast. You got John Goodman and Corey Hawks, who play these two scientists named Rhonda and Brooks. And these two characters are pretty much what gets the ball rolling, especially Rhonda, as he was the one who discovered that Skull Island was an uncharted island, and he wanted to beat that island before another opposing force can get to it. And pretty much it's Rhonda's ambitions is what get this whole story into motion. But I thought John Goodman's character, he came across as ambitious, but not someone you detest. He was still likable in a way. He was just overly ambitious. And unfortunately, his ambition is what started getting people killed and started getting people hurt. And then you have the character of Brooks, who is not the most, he ain't the most memorable character in the movie, but I do like the chemistry between him and Goodman. They play off nicely with one another. It's the character of Rhonda and Brooks, who are actually members of Monarch. And if you watch Godzilla 2014, Monarch is pretty much this governing body that knows a lot about these ancient creatures. So basically, this is like the early days of Monarch of Monarch, and it started with Rhonda and Brooks. So I like all that stuff. I like it a lot. They also bring up the whole Hollow Earth theory, which gets expanded upon in Kong vs. Godzilla. So it's good. I like it. For the most part, it's fine. And like I said, Rhonda and Brooks, they're decent characters, with Rhonda being the better one. And but performance-wise, I like it. I don't really have a lot of complaints. In terms of Packard's unit, the only two characters to me that really stand out are Shea Wingham's character, Jason Mitchell, and Toby Kebbell, along with Thomas Mann. I thought they played their roles exceptionally well. I think Wingham and Jason Mitchell had the better relationship in terms of character-wise, since their dynamic is very, very father and son-like. I would have liked to have seen more of that, but I do like the payoff with Shea Wingham's character having so much post-traumatic stress disorder that pretty much the events that happen around him, it's almost as if he's just not fazed by it, or he just doesn't know how to properly react to it. So he'll do these mundane things like open up a can of food or smoke a cigarette just as a way to process everything, while everyone around him is just looking at him like, how can you do something like that after what we just witnessed? And he just nonchalantly just says, well, that was a very irregular event that took place. I like it. I like that dry delivery from Shea Wingham. I think Shea Wingham's a very underrated actor. I think he's actually really funny. And like I said, I like the character. I like Jason Mitchell's character too. Hing and Wingham have decent chemistry that you could have easily expanded upon. Toby Kebbell is a very talented actor who I don't think gets enough respect or credit for how good he really is. I like him in this movie. I would have liked to have seen more of him in this movie. Like, he's in it for the first hour, but he doesn't really do much. His whole story arc is that he's trying to write a letter to his son back home since he's still overseas about how he's going to see him and his mom again. And of course, it had the very heartbreaking payoff of him being killed by a skull crawler. And this is what, but I do like that. But I do like the death in a sense that it continues to fuel Packard's hatred to Kong and to Skull Island as a whole. So I do like the after effect and what it does psychologically to Packard. I just wish Kebbell would have had more screen time. Excuse me. Yeah. So yeah, that's that. And now we wrap it up by talking about the characters of Conrad and Weaver, who were pretty much the two co-leads of this movie. I like Tom Hiddleston as an actor. I thought he was really good as the character of Conrad. He's more or less a former military guy who is a tracker. He's good at finding things. I think his character is overall decent. It's nothing really all that thought-provoking or anything like that. He doesn't really have a stand-up performance. I think Tom Hiddleston is overshadowed by Samuel L. Jackson and Marlowe, who just have more on-screen charisma to him and have characters who have more interesting story arcs to them. And I think Tom Hiddleston kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. And that's not a fault to Tom Hiddleston. He's doing his best to stand out, but his character as a lead is just kind of bland. And Brie Larson is not really all that different from Brie Larson. Take away Brie Larson's character being a war photographer, there's nothing really to her as well in terms of her character. Her acting is fine. I mean, I'm not the world's biggest Brie Larson fan, mainly because I think personally she's an idiot. But as an actress, I'm not going to denounce her talent. She's decent for what she can do. Her and Hiddleston have okay on-screen chemistry that doesn't light the world on fire. They do make a nice little reference to the whole romance, to the whole Beauty and the Beast angle with her and Kong. So that was a nice touch to the old school fans. But yeah, other than that, I think Hiddleston and Larson give the two weaker performances of this movie, not because it was bad, but because there's nothing really to their characters aside from just the bare bones basics, and they get overshadowed by more interesting characters and the action sequences. The action sequences in this movie is what's really been held up on. Kong versus skull crawlers. Kong versus a giant squid that he turns into sushi. Kong versus the entire Packard's army. All those action sequences are really well done and just I have a lot of fun to watch. And the CGI, for the most part, looks really good and blends in nicely. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more to say about Kong Skull Island as a movie. I enjoyed it. I like it. Is it strong? No. But does it get the job done for what it wants to set out to do? I think it does. This movie is really well made. It's got good cinematography. It's got it's got good acting all around. Even though some of the characters are hit and miss, the acting is still believable and it's still really well done. It's got a lot of cool scenes, like when Packard and when the crew are walking through this graveyard and they get attacked by skull crawlers. That's a nice, beautifully done horror movie-esque scene. Of course, that leads to the death of Rhonda, which I wasn't really overly enthusiastic with because I kind of liked that character. But it was really well done, and I enjoyed it a lot. A lot of the night sequences with the Aurora Borealis and the characters just interacting with one another, it felt natural to me. It felt real. It felt like I was watching real people and not actors in a lot of scenes. So yeah. With all that being said, I'm going to give Kong Skull Island a solid 8 out of 10. The acting is fine. It does have two standout characters, even though the other characters are not really all that memorable. But the movie itself does deliver in terms of its action, which is nice. It delivers a Kong who looks badass as fuck. It delivers scenes that are very memorable in terms of a monster movie. And like I said, even though not every single character is memorable, you do have two that stand out, and they do have really good storylines with really good payoffs at the end. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for Kong Skull Island. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.